bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good football Friday morning. Eagles fans, how are you today? Getting ready for some Sunday football action. You got the Mac and Mac guys to chop it up with you for the next 2 hours. Or at least the show's going to do 2 hours. It might not be Mac and Mac the entire time. We're going all hands on deck here today. We'll give you the details as we go along. But Johnny Mac, yesterday, you had practice duty. Good to see Jordan Davis back out there on the field. And good to hear from him again afterwards, because he's just an excitable kid who loves playing football, and it was good to hear him again. The first question I have for you today is, will we see him on Sunday with that big 9-0 on his back in the game for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I think so. I don't see why not. Obviously, I don't think the Eagles are going to let on till Saturday at 4:00, but he certainly seems healthy. He certainly seems happy. He certainly seems ready to go. And, the one issue I think that everyone had, and you kind of see it with big guys, you see it all the time with Joel Embiid when he gets hurt, and, conditioning, and is he going to be ready to go? And I think that was the most positive part. Jordan rolled out. He lost 20 pounds during his rehab. He's been, the training and strength staffs took advantage of the time, sort of dual roles to rehab the ankle plus work on his conditioning, and he's lost 20 pounds. So that was the one thing I was concerned about. Maybe the Eagles wanted, to ramp him up more than a week, to get that conditioning down. But it seems like the conditioning isn't a problem. It's gotten better as he was injured. So I see no reason why he shouldn't be out there against Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. And that's a good development, because now you have two big nose tackles in there, and you can play those 5-man fronts, and you can, put them both on a pitch count and use them both however you want. I think it's big, and even bigger than this week, Jody. I think long term it's big, because those are both really, really good players. I'm talking about Jordan Davis and Linval Joseph, and they're players the Eagles need to play the style of defense they want to play. They need that player, and they have two of them now, and that's a big positive.
Different people are certainly built, are different physiques. There's some people, if someone loses 20 pounds, you go, oh my God, where did you go? And it stands out like a sore thumb. A guy the size of Jordan Davis, you might not notice immediately that they've dropped 20 pounds. It certainly was reported that way. He said he dropped weight during the rehab that he had to go through. Could you tell just by looking at him?
No. Well, number one, he's a former Georgia player, obviously. I think he's from South Carolina, but he doesn't like the cold. So it was cold yesterday. So he was bundled up And he's just a big guy. But when before he lost the 20 pounds, he's not one of those guys you mentioned. Everybody's different. There are certain guys that look, they're 350-pound guys. They're big. They look a little bit overweight. Jordan Davis never looked like that. Like, he's a guy who can carry the weight on his frame because he's so enormous. He's so big. Jordan Mailata the same way. When you see Jordan Mailata, you don't say, oh, there's a big 380-pound guy, but he can carry 380 pounds and it doesn't look crazy. Jordan's the same way, Jordan Davis. So number one, he never looked drastically overweight to begin with, just because of the huge size he has and the frame he has. So no, he's always looked good. So when people talked about conditioning, they weren't talking about the way he looked, or at least people who see him every day. They were talking about he didn't play that much at Georgia.
Right.
And he didn't play that much at Georgia because they were so deep and so good, and they didn't have to play him that much. So I think that.
And
was
be honest, he didn't play that much for the Eagles either.
No,
they've been using
he's not
him
used to it, and there is something to. You got to get used to it. I mean, long distance runners, they're in tremendous shape, but they still got to get used to going to 26.2 when they got to go to do a marathon. You got to work up to it. And same thing with Jordan Davis.
And if you don't think that it's a strain to play defensive tackle in the National Football League, look at a guy like Fletcher Cox just a couple of weeks ago when they hadn't added the depth to the defensive tackle position when Jordan Davis first went out and he had to play 70 snaps. He was like, I feel like, what, because you're not used to taking that many reps, that many hits, that many poundings in the National Football League. And Fletcher's been doing it for a decade. His conditioning has to be up to par. And he still got worn down by the amount of snaps that he had to play. So the Eagles have the ability now, with Jordan Davis coming back, to sub liberally, to have guys in and out of that lineup and keep everybody fresh. And they're going to need it for Sunday against the Tennessee Titans, because Derrick Henry comes to town. Number 2 rushing back in the National Football League. Has been the best back in the league. You want to say last 2 years, 5 years, wherever you want to draw the line. Chances are you're going to say Derrick Henry's name. He's been that good. And the Eagles have had some issues, not a week in, week out, this is the glaring hole on the team, but to ignore it would also be unfair and inaccurate. This is not a strength of the Philadelphia Eagles stopping the run. The first week that they added Sue and Linval Joseph, they certainly were better at it. I think they added a little energy into it. This past week, the Packers, didn't rush it all that often because the Eagles grabbed an early lead. So their amount of running was going to come back to the pack a little bit. A.J. Dillon, when he ran it, and is a very comparable back to Derrick Henry, in that they're both big, strong, physical backs, ran it pretty darn effectively when he ran it. Derrick Henry is going to be the key to this game, Johnny Mac, unless the Eagles can do what they did last week, which was get out to a 2-touchdown lead before you blink. It's going to be Derrick Henry left, Derrick Henry right, and Derrick Henry up the middle for Tennessee.
Yeah, and that's how Tennessee wants to play. It's funny. I've been joking all week. The first thing everything says is to the Mike Vrabel team, toughness, physicality. That's the first thing they say. It's almost like you have to say it. But it's real. It's also real. I mean, that's the type of player he is. That's the type of way he wants his team to be. I talked to A.J. Brown about this for a long time. He wants his team to play that way. He wants his team to be tough and more physical, and he builds his team that way, and that's how they play. And you're right. And by the way, they've been very successful. This will be the 4th consecutive year they've made the playoffs, I believe. Last year, they were the number 1 seed before the disappointing ouster in the playoffs. They're a very good team, and they play that way. But when you play that way, and I talk about it all the time, there is a smaller margin for error. And one of those smaller margins is you got to play from the lead by and large, or at least stay within 1 score. So you can stick with that running game, so you can be disciplined with it. And yeah, if the Eagles get up by 2 scores, 2 touchdowns, then it changes the whole flow of the game, and Tennessee's probably in some trouble. Um, you know, one of the issues, the Titans are a little bit banged up. Nate Davis showed up. We talked to Teron Davenport yesterday. Their offensive line, not great, but they have 2 good players. Nate's one of them. And all of a sudden he shows up on the injury report with a knee, did not participate. So I think that would be very, very big. There's certain guys, Jeffrey Simmons didn't practice defensively. That would be a huge deal. But all indications I get from Teron and other people down there is he's going to play. Derrick Henry didn't practice, but that was not injury related. He's going to play.
Which, by the way, how many guys did the Eagles have listed under rest yesterday?
Yeah, well, that's been all year. That hasn't changed. I said, from week 1, that's not changing. Same guy, same rest. Wednesday's turned into Thursday late in the season. Before it was the Wednesday practice. Now it's the Thursday practice. That's not changing. That's going to continue. And the Eagles, by and large, have stayed very healthy. It's interesting. You take out the rest players, and their injury report looks much better than the Titans, but most of their injuries are on injured reserve, or in the case of CJ Gardner-Johnson, he might be headed to injured reserve. Who knows? But we know he's out. We know Dallas Goedert's out. We know Avonte Maddox is out. So most of their injuries are more clearly defined. It's going to be an interesting game, Jody. We'll get to it. I'm only going to be here for the first hour, but I haven't picked the Eagles to lose all season. I had a really difficult time with this one. For a lot of reasons, and one of them is there's no juice to these intra-conference games. Like there's no, with the Giants coming up next week, it's the Giants. Tennessee's a better team. But I guarantee there's going to be more juice for the Giants than Tennessee. And you see this across the league. It's just, you don't see a team much. There's no real, except for A.J. Brown. Obviously, he wants to play very well against this team.
I was going to, thanks, you went there for me. A.J. Brown and
there's one guy, though. It's not
is it really,
else.
though, John? That was one of the questions I wrote down today. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we saw Nick Sirianni get overly excited after the game when they came from behind and beat the Colts, and he said all the right things leading up to the game, and then all of a sudden the emotion burst out of him when the game was over. So you knew he was keeping it under wraps. We took some points here on our stream. I took calls on WIP. Oh, Sirianni called a bad game. Sirianni was too emotional during that. It showed in the play calling, which I thought was blatantly overstated. I don't really believe that. Was there some maybe, but people were, that's the only thing Sirianni worried about, beating the Colts. That's why they called the game the way they did. No, I don't, not really. But do you think there's any chance that the play calling slides A.J. Brown's way, that they will attempt to getting A.J. Brown the ball? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's usually a very good thing. But do you think they'll overdo it in an attempt to let him have the kind of game he wants against his former squad?
I don't think they're going to overdo it. I think it's natural to slide it in that direction because Tennessee's really good at stopping the run. They're really good again. They're really bad at stopping the pass. So number one, in theory, you would think you'd want to throw the ball against this defense. And he's your best receiver. So I think some of it is just natural. I think it's a bigger deal with the head coach because the head coach is the head coach and the head coach can put his thumb on the scale. And the head coach, it's a big deal when he sees something as a coach. A.J. Brown, as I said, is just one player and is a receiver. And receivers by nature are at the mercy of a lot of people to get involved in the game, starting with the quarterback and the coach and the offensive coordinator and the play caller. I think it's a bigger deal with the head coach. I see this all the time. I've seen it for years. It's not just this week. It happens every week all across the NFL for every team. There are rivalry games, and obviously Dallas week is a bigger deal around Philadelphia than Tennessee week. But you see these intra-conference games, and yeah, there's not as much juice. It's real. There's not as much juice in these games. You'll see it with your Jets. I think your Jets are going to go into Minnesota and throw for 350 yards against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. And Jody McDonald, I'm not going to speak for you, but you're probably going to get really excited by that. And then next week, and I don't know who the Jets have next week, it's going to come down to, it's going to come back down to reality. Especially if it's an AFC East game. Same thing in the NFC East. There's just not as much juice to these games, and it's true. It really is.
All right, I think the juice, if the Eagles can't get juiced up by facing the best back in the National Football League, shame on them. All right,
well, I don't mean they're completely looking. I just mean compared to other games, there's less juice to these intra-conference games.
All right, we'll
only play 17 of them.
After this one is over and done, we'll compare to what the Giants are next week, because that should be a juiceful game. It's a division game. It's a rivalry game. We'll see if there's that much more juice to it. Derrick Henry's average numbers this year, not his best games, not his worst games, his average games. He averages 22 carries per game. You think he's doing more or less against Eagles this week?
Can you tell me the score in the fourth quarter?
That would be up to you, big guy. I'm asking
you
to look into the crystal ball, and that includes the crystal ball of the score, which dictates the number of carries that he gets. So the number is over, under 22. You going under or over?
I would go over. But again, and that's why those things are largely meaningless to me, because it depends on it depends on how the game goes. If Tennessee is being successful and Tennessee's playing well, then I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to pick Tennessee to win the game, so that's why I'm going over. Then he's going over. If they're not, if they're behind by 2 scores, then he's going under. I think they're going to be somewhat successful. I can't pick the Eagles to win every single stinking game, so I feel like I need to pick somebody else at some point. So this week seems to be the best way to go. So from that standpoint, I think they're going to win the game. So I think he's going to go over that number. If they get behind by 2 scores, Jody, not getting that number.
Okay, yeah, 4.2 yards per carry. You going over on that one too?
Yeah, I mean the Eagles, and it's interesting because Derrick has hit this lull. I think it was 2.2 versus the Bengals. He's been under. He might be under 3. I don't have it in front of me over the past 3 games, where guys have he's had a really difficult time. Part of that is the Titans' offensive line, but the Eagles aren't going to play that style of defense. They're going to play the light boxes and hope to. So they're not equipped to do that, and they're okay with that. That's built into their philosophy.
Right. They may be. I'm not. And Jonathan Gannon, the other day, you were there when he gave his explanation as to how the Bengals were able to hold Derrick Henry to 2 points. He never once said because they put an extra guy in the box. Not once. Now, he's a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. He knows how to break down tape. He knows exactly what went down. He gave this long-winded dancing all around it without ever coming out and saying, well, they dedicated an extra guy to the run. Why? Because he's not going to do that on Sunday. And when Derrick Henry goes for 120 yards and rushes for 5 yards a clip, you better hope it's only 1 touchdown and not 2, Eagles fans. Jonathan Gannon is going to have to answer that question from Johnny Mack or somebody else come next Happy Tuesday. Well, why didn't you commit an extra guy to the running game when Derrick Henry was running it the way he was running it? He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Birds 365. J-Mac stand for the first hour. Then he's got to run and get inside information from Nick Sirianni. Barrett Brooks is going to join me in hour number 2. Our guest in hour number 2 is going to be Jimmy Kempski from Philly Voice. Our guest in hour number 1, and he's up next, is our very own Joe Sandler-Liquido. He jumps in on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered.
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
A Football Friday edition of Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guy, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, that we are lucky enough to have our very own. He writes for JAKIBSports.com, The Inquirer, about 42 different boxing publications, but one of the hardest working men in journalism. Joe Sandler-Laquito joins us here on Birds 365. What's the garb you got on? You wearing the Army today? Very nice.
There we go.
Army West Point weekend, guys. The Baltarage is back.
Yeah. How about
the Baltarage?
Army, Navy, always one of the most exciting things in college football, I think. I don't know how many people agree with me, but that's always a big part of college football for me. But we're talking pro football, Joe. We're talking the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. You know, I don't know if you heard me. I mentioned I have not picked the Eagles to lose a game this year. I picked them, to not cover spreads and things like that. I have not picked them to lose a game. So for all the people that think I hate the Eagles, I know they're a really good team. This game, though, I look at and I say, I got a little bit of a concern. And it's not, the Eagles are a better team. A couple things I mentioned to Jody. He doesn't buy my, there's just not as much juice with intra-conference games. I think that's part of it. I also think, and you're a boxing guy, and you hear this all the time, styles make fights. And the style of the Tennessee Titans is not what the Eagles are built for. Is that fair to say?
Incredibly fair to say. First off, it's a style that travels well and can win in various places. It is a running, defensive-oriented style. It is a style that works obviously well with the personnel. I got a chance to meet, and I've gotten the chance to know Derrick Henry through my association with the Maxwell Club. I've been next to Derrick. Derrick has thighs the size of tree trunks. He
closest to Earl Campbell since Earl Campbell.
Yeah, and bigger, and possibly faster than Earl. And I loved Earl Campbell. This is a team that is incredibly well coached by Vrabel and the staff that they have there. They don't always have the best personnel, but they somehow, some way find ways to stay competitive. I think there was a game earlier this season, correct me if I'm wrong. They went into overtime with Kansas City, correct? They went into overtime with Kansas City.
Yeah, they outplayed Kansas City.
But yet there was a span of time where I think they had a first down with like 5 minutes left in the first half. And then for the rest of the game, only had one more first down. Yet they somehow, some way stayed competitive with arguably the most explosive offensive team in the NFL and the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're going to have their hands full with Jeffrey Simmons, which, again, John, you know far more football than I do, but will he be the best defensive lineman that the Eagles face this season?
He's
so far?
up there. Yeah, he's top 5 defensive lineman in the entire league. So, yeah, it's tough to get better than Jeffrey Simmons.
What I also will say, and what I like about this Eagles staff, is their ability to adjust. Coach Gannon, Coach Sirianni, they are not old school fixed on my way or the highway. They're not guys that are locked into something. I like to believe that Gannon saw the type of job that the Cincinnati Bengals did. And again, I think I counted at one time 8 or 9 in the box.
Oh, yeah.
Against Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's not happening with the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, I maybe, do you think maybe Gannon will even toy around with that look on a few occasions?
No. They don't want to play that. They don't want to play that.
I give John credit because he has not moved off this one iota. Not going to happen. They're not going to add an extra linebacker to the field. They're not going to put 9 guys in the box. If they are, then Reed Blankenship's going to be the most important player in this game because it's going to be the extra safety guy coming down to be in the box. Is Reed Blankenship going to be able to tackle Derrick Henry one-on-one?
I'll tell you what, there were some things that I liked about what he did in the situation he was faced with against the Packers Sunday night. You look at the long touchdown by Christian Watson. I believe it was Marcus Epps that originally covered him.
Yeah, Marcus got beat on the coverage. Yeah,
Blankenship took a wrong angle into taking him. I believe he came inside where he should have reared a little bit more outside. And the other major concern, obviously, is and again, is a pet peeve of mine, is their special teams. I have it in my mind, and it's a recurring nightmare. They're in the NFC Championship, hosting the San Francisco 49ers. They just go up 26-23 with 47 seconds left. And there's a kickoff that is returned a yard deep in the end zone. And you have Nakobe Dean and Zach McPherson and Kayvon Wallace and Kayron Johnson all merging down there. And just like Keshawn Nixon did, they get smashed out of their lanes.
Yeah.
And you got a lane right up there.
I was going to say, Joe, forget about a yard deep. They're taking it out 5-6 yards deep against the Eagles.
People look at Kayvon Wallace made a great play on Nixon. He wound up making a tackle on that play. But Kayvon Wallace had outside contain. He's the one that got blown out. So we're giving Nixon that lane to run through. So this is something there that I feel. Let's all agree. I mean, this has been a special team. They seem to be heading in a special direction. But I just can't. It's Philadelphia, and maybe it's the Philadelphia in me that's coming out. But I can't help but think it's going to be. I go back to, oh my God, was it Horst Muhlmann that missed the extra point against the Atlanta Falcons in that?
Yes, nice Horst Muhlmann reference. That's a tremendous pull. Tremendous pull.
I suffer from Horst Muhlmann disease. I can't look past those situations that have happened in Eagles past. I mean, granted, again, that's past, and this is the present. But my inner Philadelphia in me comes out.
There's been a lot of good things that happened to the Eagles on special teams. Deshaun Jackson, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my God, yeah. Since then, but
you
this
harp on the bad things, yeah.
With this current situation and what's happening here right now, it either gets addressed or again, my fear in the back of my mind my very small mind, is that this could lead to the ruinization of a great year.
Here's why.
And the Eagles are this is certainly as close to a Super Bowl that you can get. I mean, this is a Tennessee team that's right now. I mean, obviously it's the best team the Eagles will face in the AFC, and it's a great preview as to what possibly could be. I'm not saying it is. I don't think it is. I don't think the Titans are going to get out of the AFC, but it's as close to it. And this is a great test for the Eagles.
Here's why.
And Mr. McMullen, I think they're going to win. And I'm supposed to be an Eagles hater too.
Johnny's leaning toward a loss. I haven't made my prediction yet, but I will disagree with John. He might be right, but if he is, then shame on the Philadelphia Eagles if that's the case, that there's less juice for this game because it's an AFC opponent. It's not a rivalry game. The team that may be the biggest deterrent to the Philadelphia Eagles making the Super Bowl might just well be the San Francisco 49ers. Johnny's choice to come out of the NFC this year. That would be great if it's his choice against my choice in the NFC Championship game, 49ers Eagles, which is certainly what it looks like for me right now. Mm-hmm. The Tennessee Titans are a lot like the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Good defense, physical, punch you in the mouth, gonna run the football down your throat, an offensive coordinator who is dedicated to the run. Their quarterbacks are similar. Jimmy G's not going for 450 against you. He's just gonna dink and dunk and underneath and not turn the ball over. Sounds a lot like Ryan Tannehill to me. If you want to get prepped for San Francisco, they're not on the schedule. We talk so much about, who the Eagles played. They haven't played it, but you play who you play. Your schedule's your schedule. They can't say, can we play San Francisco to prove ourselves? No, it doesn't work that way. We'll go ahead and beat Tennessee then. That's the most San Francisco-like team on the Eagles schedule. There should be no downturn for this game, lack of juice. It should be something they can use as an outstanding prep for upcoming playoff games. Yay or nay?
Oh, very much yay. Very much yay. And also, San Francisco is very well coached. I mean, DeMeco Ryans, I don't know how much longer he's going to be defensive coordinator.
He's going to get a head coaching job before Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
I'll predict that for you right now.
I'll
make any wager Johnny Mac wants to make that DeMeco Ryans gets a head coaching job before Jonathan Gannon.
JG was ahead last year. I'll say that. He got the 3 interviews. DeMeco,
and maybe I'm just being.
You mean like the Chiefs offensive coordinator, who's had how many interviews now, and how many jobs?
And some people will say, that's one of the issues with the NFL with minority candidates, and some people will say Jonathan Gannon's got the advantage from that standpoint as well. Hopefully, that's not the case, but I always say with JG. Yeah, and even Jody McDonald saying, in 5 minutes, if I put him in a room with you, you'd be singing a different tune. He wins people over. He wins people over quickly, and that's half the battle when it comes to these interviews. That's one of the reasons it's about people, it's about relationships. And the minute people walk in a room with Jonathan Gannon, they go, wow. That's kind of why he's where he is, to be honest.
Let me ask this: why do you believe he may not toy around with the idea of throwing eight in the box possibly Sunday?
Well, their whole philosophy is, and I've said it for a long time now, to the point people are probably tired of hearing it. They run the Vic Fangio scheme, which is about limiting explosive plays on the back end. They've already done this cost benefit analysis. They think it's more important to stop the passing game than the running game in the modern NFL. I disagree with them. On a given week like this week, it changes. But long term,
it doesn't change for the Eagles.
Yeah, but long term, it doesn't. So that, number one, that's their philosophy. They don't want to go. I've always compared it to playing Navy. You got your Army sweatshirt. You can't justify just preparing for Navy because not enough teams play like Navy. It's not that drastic in the NFL, but you can't really justify it from the Eagles. And by the way, it's not the Eagles, just the Eagles. Last time I checked, 12 or 13 teams were running the same scheme. They all believe the same thing. So it's about playing light boxes, and then quarters coverage, cover 6, cover 2 on the back end, and disguising things as much as possible to the snap. That's the Eagles' defensive philosophy. They're not going to change it for Derrick Henry for 60 minutes of football. That's, and maybe I'm wrong. And I might even hope I'm wrong, because Jody knows I don't even particularly like this scheme. It kind of drives me crazy at times, but that's what they believe. And to this point, it's proven to be true.
Yes. And I feel badly I'm stepping on it. I feel the need to repeat this again. I have no problem with the thought process, with the scheme, with their overall way of looking things. My problem is inflexibility. And John says it like every show we do here on Birds 365. Not happening, not happening, not happening, not happening. That's the way they play defense, and they're not going to change. That sucks. I'm sorry. Jonathan Gannon, head coach, if you don't have the capability to be flexible on a given week and be able to tinker, not drastically change, tinker your defense, well, then you can't be my head coach. You're so married to your system that, oh no, we're going to go down this way.
Well, I will say
we can't possibly change. Then why the hell would I ever make you my head coach?
The tinkering is built in. The tinkering is the variable fronts. The tinkering is more 5-man fronts, more Linval, more Jordan Davis, less 4-man fronts, because Derrick Henry's on the field. It's built in. The tinkering is built in. If quarters isn't working 1 week, maybe you go to cover 6, maybe you go to more cover 2. It's all built in. And from that standpoint, when you look at Vic's defense at the height in Chicago specifically, well, yeah, I want to play that defense. But, you also need Khalil Mack winning Defensive Player of the Year. And you also need Akeem Hicks being the most underrated defensive lineman in football, just blowing up plays. And when you don't have that, and I'll go to Jody's Jets again, you'll see it this week with Jody's Jets and Mike White. When you don't have that and you're trying to play that defense, well, you're giving up 380 yards to Mac Jones. You're probably going to give up 350 to Mike White. So it's kind of, give me Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks at the prime of their careers. I freaking love this defense. Don't give me those guys. Reed Blankenship, Josiah Scott. You might have some issues.
That is a great point, John. Yeah, because I'm over here and I'm thinking here, who's the personnel they bring in? Do you bring in Sean Bradley? Do you bring in the Kobe Dean, Patrick Johnson, Kayron Johnson? Who do you bring in? Who do you rotate out? How do you do? I mean, how schematically would that work? If they did bring the extra linebacker in, if they did try to jam it up.
Well,
I mean, there's not exactly there's no buckets there to choose from.
There's no buckets there. And I'll add just one more thing. If you don't practice something, it's probably not a good idea to roll it out there.
I thought they tinkered. They don't practice tinkering?
No, the tinkering is built in. That's why I said the tinkering, their tinkers are already built in. And it has to do with the variable fronts, and it has to do with the different coverages. That stuff's already built in. That's stuff they practice. The other stuff that people want them to do, they don't practice. So it's probably not a good idea.
And my point is, shame on them. If that's the case, shame on them. They should practice it. They should be ready to play it on a Sunday.
What's the status of Jordan Davis? Is he scheduled to be back?
I think he's going to be back. He's practicing. They started his window. We won't know. You know how the Eagles are, Joe. We won't know until Saturday at 4. My hunch is he'll play. He looks ready to go. He lost 20 pounds, so conditioning isn't a problem. Okay. And there's no reason not to play him. And I think that makes them better because you have 2 big guys in the middle now. So you can play more 5-man fronts. And everything in the NFL is personnel driven. So the Eagles have very, very good personnel up front. And they have.
Even I'll tell you what, there were moments in the Green Bay game, and I'm over here and I have one of them that I made note of. Specifically as I slowed down the play here, where Milton Williams and help me out here. Help me out with Sue's first name. I'm pronouncing
Ndamukong Suh.
Ndamukong Suh got completely shoved out of the way on A.J. Jones' 20-yard run.
Can I say, I don't know why he's here. Great guy, by the way, Ndamukong Suh. He's got this reputation of being the scary guy and stepping on Aaron Rodgers' head. He's actually a very nice man. He's actually, but I don't know why he's here. I don't know why he's here. Linval Joseph, I know why he's here. They needed that type of player. Ndamukong Suh, he helps Fletcher Cox and limit his reps, but I thought it was an overcorrection to a weird game.
Come on, wait. They lost Marlon Tuipulotu. Somebody had to pick up the Marvin slack. Come on. That's why Ndamukong's here, John. You know that.
Well, Marlon was playing nose tackle. So Marlon was playing Linval's position. He was the backup to Jordan Davis, and he couldn't play that. So I get why Linval's here. And I thought that was a great signing, and it's working out very well for the Eagles. And Ndamukong Suh, like Jody and I were talking about it, throw this out to you, Joe. Somebody can't dress this week, in theory, unless you're going to carry another defensive lineman. And that's probably going to be Milton Williams, who is a good young player. He makes some mistakes. It probably hasn't jumped off the page like people would have liked. But I think long-term, he's still a big part of this team's future and plans. And I don't want to take away reps from Milton Williams. Now, they could sit Robert Quinn. They probably should get Robert Quinn. Yeah.
He's done nothing.
But I don't want to take reps away from Milton Williams.
Out of the two of them, my lean is towards Suh than Williams, because I've seen Williams again. John, there's been times where he's been completely rolled out of plays.
Yeah, he's a young player.
Rolled out of plays. My only issues with Suh is that he seems to come upfield too often. Again, that was the first drive the previous week, where again Suh's coming upfield, and when he plays discipline, when he just basically stay there and uphold the blocks, just do your job and congest, he's fine. But that tendency to come up the field a little bit, that in trouble. And again, this is a guy that's been consummate pass rush, the consummate. He's breaking, he's breaking the pocket, a pocket breaker, but they're not asking him, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're not asking him to do that here. They're asking him to stay put.
Well, but that's the problem. He was a superstar. He was a legit superstar defensive lineman, and he was a star player, all-decade team guy, 5-time All-Pro, used to going after the passer. And now you're right. They want him to muck up, play gap and a half, and that's not what he does. That's another example of I don't know if he's the best fit at this stage of his career. Whereas, Milton Williams is a young player. He's going to do what he's told. He's not going to freelance. He's going to, not saying he's great, but again, sometimes you have to develop these young players. How do you develop them? Well, getting reps, getting them better. And I think he was getting incrementally better. It's just a nitpick, but that's what you have to do with 10-1 teams. It's a great problem to have because you can roll out Ndamukong Suh, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Milton Williams. That's pretty stinking good. Yeah, that is pretty stinking good.
Yeah, out of the two of them, though, like I said, I'm just a little bit because I think you can still train that or coach that into Suh, even though, again, what's the saying? Never can't change an old dog.
Teach an old dog new tricks.
New tricks.
35. I don't know how many.
But I will say this again. I go back to the Colts game and that opening drive, where again Suh just seemed to have that tendency to come up the field. The rest of that game he didn't. The rest of the game, he stayed where he was supposed to stay. He congested. He made problems for John Taylor to run. And if he's able to do that and stay disciplined within himself, which I think he's very capable of doing, that could cause some problems for Derrick Henry. Again, that can cause you just want to junk up that middle to where he does not have. Because again, we all know once Derrick Henry gets going, a Mack truck can't stop.
Oh yeah, you don't want him getting
him at the point of attack. Yeah. And I believe he had 17 carries. I think 9 of those 17 were for a yard or less against the Bengals. And again, they stopped him at the point of attack. They stopped him before he was able to take off. Now, the other issue you're going to have is now you saw what he did against the Bengals. They slipped him out. And I think he gained more yards receiving than he did rushing, which has been, might have been the first in his career. Yeah. That's going to be a problem. That could be a problem for the Eagles on Sunday.
All right, Joe, no, you got to run, but before you go, I'm going to ask you I complimented your journalism earlier, and I know you guys, and I've been saying this on the air for 30 plus years. The headline says, and then blame the writer. It doesn't always work that way. You guys don't get to write the headline. Somebody else writes the headline. If it doesn't fit the article, that's their problem, not yours. I'm going to let you do both. Give me the headline after the Eagles and the Titans. What is the Joe Santoliquito headline that will fit his game story thereafter say about the game on Sunday?
Eagles shut down Henry in 21-17 victory.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I like your score, but I don't know that they're going to shut down Henry.
Well, I don't think so either. I'll tell you what, shutting down Derrick Henry is maybe 100 yards, 110 yards.
As opposed to what would be above his average. I don't know that you can say they're shutting him down if he's above his average. JS, no, you got to run. Thanks much for hopping on with us today. Appreciate it greatly.
Gotcha, guys.
We'll be right here on Monday for the post-game column on JAKIBSports.com. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, he's loves Santoliquito, but he is a stone cold shill. Have swag, will wear. He's worse than I am. Because hey, if it's free, it's for me. Has always been one of my guiding lights in life.
Oh yeah, I was talking to Dallas Goedert, who Martin Frank, who was on the show earlier this week, because Delaware's playing South Dakota State. So we're talking to him a little bit about the playoffs, the FCS. I get them mixed up. FCS, right?
And I'm the only one who's riding with the hands. All you other guys were all over the Jackrabbits.
South Dakota State's really good. But Dallas was.
All I'm saying, beware the hands.
Dallas was joking that the playoffs are great because unlike FBS, you only got 4 teams, and FCS you got the whole group and everybody's got a chance. But he's like, the one thing he missed playing FCS is he didn't get any swag from bowl games. No swag. So yeah, swag is a big thing.
It is
in the sports world.
He's got his Army sweater on. Good, more power to him. Which, by the way, Army Navy don't play this week.
Yeah,
this is championship conference week. This is conference. Next week is Army Navy. They always play.
He's gearing up early.
After
he's gearing up. Up.
I think they announced that they're going to.
Where is the game this year?
It's Philly.
Army Navy. Here. Yeah. Good. It should be every year, but obviously
they're adding years on the back end where it's going to keep it in Philly for years to come. But the Army Navy game is not this week. We got championship conference game this week, and I was doing some homework because I got an exit stage left myself. Johnny Mac's going to run here in 5 minutes. Barrett Brooks going to come in for him. Jimmy Kempski's going to jump on with us and do a Friday afternoon spot. And then I need to get out early because I got to jump over and host on CBS Sports Radio. And I know I'm going to be talking some college football there. So I already did my handicapping. Johnny Mac, you talk about lack of juice. That's not the case in college football this week. All the championship games. I hate to say it. I think it's going to be really chalky. I'm not going to predict any upset. I know people would love to see chaos for the College Football Bowl Committee to be able to sink their teeth into some. I think all the teams that are supposed to win are going to win.
Yeah, that's depressing. That's always you like to see some upheaval. You like to see some upsets. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I disagree with you. I'm trying to figure out who.
Kansas State had the lead against TCU when they played earlier this year. TCU rallied and beat them. TCU's playing better now than
Now,
they
see,
were
I'm a
earlier in the year.
TCU fan every year. If there's somebody who's going to be there that isn't typically there, that's who I'm
TCU
rooting
there
for.
now, and they're going to stay there, I think.
Yeah, that's what. So I'm going to root for them, and I always hope that they perform. Same thing with Cincinnati last year, but it usually doesn't work. It usually, unfortunately, I always joke Alabama could lose 4 probably, and they'd still have them in the mix. But I'm being facetious. But
Oh, no, you're not, because, I had calls last week.
4.
Bama's going to fight their way back. You're leaving Bama out. It can still
Yeah.
be Bama. No, it couldn't be Bama for one reason,
No.
one reason only. At the most, one team's going to come out of the top 4 right now. If USC loses, they could fall out. Ohio State's going in. Ohio State is 5, Alabama's 6. So Alabama isn't jumping Ohio State on a weekend where neither one of them are going to be playing just because they're Alabama. The committee is not that stupid.
Yeah, be careful. I think they are that stupid.
No, they're not. They're not going to jump them. What's their explanation afterwards?
Well, did they need
they're
one?
Alabama?
It's Alabama.
Are they going to get on a microphone and say that? I don't think so.
Hey, I'm the first. I don't want to ever see Alabama in that damn thing again. I'm so bored of it. Look, they're a great team, and obviously, but it's boring. It is boring. And whether, anytime, even USC, having them back in the mix is nice. Anything
different.
Bit
of a change. It's been a while since USC has been.
I got to go back to Pete Carroll, really. And they were one of those teams. Anything different, I'm for in college football. And it's been Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State. Every year. It's boring.
Oh, by the way, Caleb Williams can put a hammerlock on the Heisman Trophy if he comes out and plays well. I think he's the leader as of right now, and I think he could
throw some Oklahoma in there. Oklahoma during when Lincoln Riley was there, and they just took Oklahoma to USC. That's what they did.
That's exactly right. And a smart guy like me could have said before the season started, at 10-1, Caleb Williams is an outstanding guy to play for the Heisman Trophy. Ask me how much money I put down on it, John. Said it on the air on CBS.
0?
Didn't put a friggin' penny on it, idiot. All right. Johnny Mac, no, you got to run. But before you do, you've kind of hinted at it. You've been leaning all show long and picked the Eagles 11 straight times this year. Are you going to make it 12, or are you going to, in this non-juiced game, predict the Eagles actually come out on the
No, I'm going to pick the Eagles to lose for the first time this year. 24-23. Obviously, it's going to be a close game. Can go either way. Tennessee is giving up. You got to go back to week 4, I think. So they've given up. I'm just trying to look it up. 17, 17, 10, 10.
8 straight games, 20 or less.
Yeah. 20 in overtime. 10, 17, 20. It's a good defense. I think the Eagles are better. I don't think they're better than the average team. I just think, it's hard to pick somebody 17 straight weeks. And everybody has lulls. The Eagles are in a lull, to be honest. And part of that is injury related. Started in Houston. They didn't play great. Obviously, they had their one loss against Washington. They didn't play great in Indianapolis. They didn't play great against Green Bay. They're in a bit of a lull.
They scored 40 points last week, John.
But they gave up 33, which they typically don't do. And a lot of that had to do with their special teams.
They're in a defensive special teams lull, or?
Well, again, Houston, Washington, Indianapolis. It's not just the Green Bay game. They haven't been the same offensively since Dallas Goedert's been out of the lineup. I do think this is more of a need to pass week. Now, it's tough to say the Eagles can't run on anybody because they always run, but they're not going to run for 363. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. And I don't think they're the same passing offense without Dallas Goedert.
That's true.
Very close game. Could go either way. It's going to be a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Might be a made Jake Elliott kick, might be a missed Jake Elliott kick, but I can't go 17 games and not pick the Eagles to lose. So here it is, picking the Eagles to lose.
I hope it comes down to a Jake Elliott kick because I have faith in Jake Elliott. Our scores are very similar. I'm going to pick the Birds. I already picked them to lose once this year, and that was Arizona. And if the Amendola made his kick, it could have gone the other way. Instead, Dicker, the kicker, converted for the Eagles. I'm that much more confident with Jake Elliott kicking this week. I'm going 23-20 Eagles. So our scores are very similar. The biggest difference is you got Tennessee by 1. I got the Eagles by 3. Either way, John and I are saying don't bet the Birds minus the 4.5. But we shall see. All right, J-Mac, you and I be back here on Monday. Have a safe travel over to NovaCare Complex.
Thank you, Jody.
John McMullen here with me on Birds 365. We'll take a timeout here at the top of the hour. Barrett Brooks going to jump into the Johnny Mac seat. Jimmy Kempski going to join us shortly thereafter. You're listening to Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted,
revered,
appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate, honest,
and fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Appreciate you jumping in on hour number 2 of Birds 365. That is not John McMullen. I can guarantee you that. That would be Barrett Brooks filling in for Johnny Mac. He's running.
Jody Mac, how's it going today?
How you be, Big B?
Hey, 10-1, raring to go for this game this weekend. This what football is all about. December football, playoff football. You run the rock, that's how you win.
I'm glad to hear you say that because John and I were debating a little bit. He said this game for him lacks a little bit of juice. AFC game, you got rivalries, 2 games against the Giants and the Cowboys yet to come. Because if it's an outer conference game, not as much juice. I didn't agree, or at least not to the extent that Johnny thought. Let me reference our stream, because I know on your show you pay attention to the stream. We got a couple of guys checking in on the stream talking about, hey, this could be a statement game.
Yes.
If we can beat a Tennessee Titan team, a team that finished with the most wins in the AFC regular season last year, a team that looks like they're all but a lock to make the playoffs over in the AFC, the Eagles could make a statement. Which one is it more? A statement game or just an out-of-conference game that doesn't have playoff implications and tiebreakers and everything else? How do you look at this game before it ever gets underway?
This is a statement game because this is what playoff football is about. This is when playoff begins. You start jockeying for position on where you're going to be in the playoffs. That's number one. Number two, we're going against a team that runs the rock. And when you have a team like that and you haven't been able to stop people from running the rock, this is a statement game, not just for the fans, but to them individually on the defensive side of the ball to say, hey, we're going to go against the best running back in the league. We can stop. If we stop them here, what can anybody else say? Everybody else's game plan against us will be null and void, because we can stop King Henry, we can stop anybody. The biggest thing for me on the offensive side of the ball is, can they run against this team? Now, everybody's saying, oh, they have the worst secondary in the league. Yes, I understand that. They're ranked, 29th as far as, production against the pass. I understand that. But they have to run the ball simply because that's what they do. That's their personality. That's what their team, their offensive unit is built to do. And we have to establish the run regardless of who, they're going against. Last year and the year before, we played against a New Orleans team that was number one against the run. Each time they played them, they were number one against the run. And Jalen Hurts' ability to run the ball is what was the biggest difference on how they defended him. And that was huge because they did it anyways. They ran the block anyway. So this is a statement game for the offensive side of the ball. It's like, all right, yes, we can pass. We know we can pass. But we have to run the ball because that's what we are. That's what we do. This is playoff football, and we're starting right now.
And when I look at Tennessee, you talked about the difference between yards per game that they give up against the run and against the pass, and it's lopsided. They're one of the best against the run. They're one of the worst against the pass. Well, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do teams pass it more against Tennessee because they're not good at covering it, or they pass it more against Tennessee because they try and run it against them, realize, oh, shoot, we can't do that. We better throw the ball, and then end up getting all the yardage too. I don't know the reason that they're bad against the pass is because they're just not talented enough talent-wise on that side of the field, or because other teams go, well, we know we can't run the ball against them, so I guess we better get our passing game up and going in this given week. That's why I'm scared a little bit. I think overall the Tennessee defense is pretty damn good. Better against the run than the pass, but not as lopsided as the yards per might seem. I saw you on NBC Sports this morning. Key guy, TJ Edwards. You think he's sitting on a big game? He better be, because somebody's going to have to keep Derrick Henry in check.
Absolutely. He's the key. He's the cog that gets that whole machine going. If he can stop the run, if they put their 50 front end, meaning they're going to cover the center and both guards, they'll be more apt to have those guys, those linebackers make plays because they'll be free. You can't get anybody up on the second level because you got to worry about the line of scrimmage dealing with Sue, Joseph, Davis, Fletcher Cox, all those guys. But when you look at this defense and how they're constructed, they're just a young secondary. And that's why they're not going out there and playing like most teams. McCrary is a young guy. He was drafted last year. This year, he's a rookie from Auburn, drafted in the second round. He's starting a nickel. On the outside, they got, pretty, for the most part, young guys. Christian Fulton. He was drafted in 2020. Molden, he was drafted in 21. Very, very young secondary. Elijah Molden was pretty good. He was the counterpart to, the other corner that got drafted by Kansas City year before last. They're just a young secondary. Even though they have, Hooker's a pretty good guy and Baird's a pretty good receiver. Both of those guys are pretty good. Not receivers, but pretty good safeties, they still lack the experience of a big-time secondary because they are so young. Now, they're going to get better, and they'll probably be one of the best secondaries come, next year or two. But they're just young guys out there that just don't know yet. And that's why teams are able to throw the ball on them. Them guys up front, man, they can rush the passer, and that's the only thing that I worry about. The key matchup to me is Bud Dupree on Jordan Mailata. He can mix it up, man. And Jordan's got to come with his A game. And also, both of our guards, both Dickerson and Seumalo, haven't been playing well in the past here lately. The last 5 games, they've been giving up a little pressure in the interior of the offensive line. You don't want to do that against Simmons. Simmons is at work. Jeffrey Simmons, Mississippi State guy like Fletcher Cox, can rush the passer. He's built kind of funny. He has wide hips, and he's just so explosive off the snap of the ball. And that's, he's the guy that I'm really looking at as far as, all right, can our guards block him? Because he'll make it a long day if we allow him to get going.
Yeah, strength against strength. The
Yep.
Tennessee defensive line against the Eagles offensive line going to be a key matchup in this game. All right, Barrett Brooks in for Johnny Mac. Coming up next, our buddy Jimmy Kempski from Philly Voice is going to hop in with us, help us finish out hour number 2. Barrett's going to take us home a little bit later because I got to exit stage left. So we're subbing in and out today. Hope you enjoyed the mix. Jimmy Kempski jumps into it next here on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered.
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
Motivated. And always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader. And we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Appreciate you being here on Birds 365. Barrett Brooks and Johnny Mac. We got Jimmy Kempski jumping on board with us from voice.com. Always good to get JK involved. All right, I'm going to double down on a couple things we've already discussed. First hour with you, Jim Kempski. Does this game have the prerequisite juice in your mind? Is there enough buzz about this game, or is it underwhelming because it's an AFC opponent?
Well, first of all, just so you know, I am very low on gas. I just pulled into a gas station. So when they come up to the car, I'm going to have to tell them to fill it regular as an introduction to the show.
You're not talking about Jordan Davis when you say fill it regular. You're talking about gas. Okay, I got you. We got that covered. I got you.
So does it have juice? Yeah, I think this is a... Sorry, hang on one second. Can you fill it regular, please?
He wasn't kidding, folks.
Yes. Thank you. This is outstanding radio.
Yeah.
My apologies.
on YouTube, no less.
I didn't know you could use regular in a Lamborghini, man.
Yeah, it's not me. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a 7-4 team. They're coming off a big win over the Packers on Sunday Night Football. You know, Packers, of course, not the team that they have been over the years, but you know, certainly anytime you can beat Aaron Rodgers, that's kind of a big deal. And this is a team that was the 1 seed in the AFC playoffs last year. Very tough, physical team. It's an interesting test. It's not juicy in the same way that it would be if, like, you're playing the Cowboys or even the Giants maybe at this time of year with their 7-4 record as well. But yeah, I mean, this is a legit team, and you know, it's a 1:00 game, so you know there's a certain limited amount of juice when you have one of those. But yeah, certainly this is a big matchup for them, and you know, they should provide a great test for the toughness of this Eagles team.
I just thought that, you know, going into this game, you know, it with the parity in the league right now, there's a lot of teams. It's usually front loaded with a dynasty type of team like the Kansas Cities, the Bills. But I think that this team has started to turn into the right team at the right time. They're getting better at the right time. They got their quarterback Tannehill the past couple of weeks and put them at the level. Now they're leading the division, and they're still going to be up there as far as being one of the upper echelon teams. Do you see this Titans team as a threat going into the Super Bowl as far as with, you know, guys like Kansas City and the Bills?
So when I look at this matchup with the Titans and Eagles, and I'll, you know, get to your point on the Chiefs and Bills, what I see here is a team that is very good running the football, obviously, with Derrick Henry, and they're outstanding stopping the run. And those two things are very good things to be able to do in the playoffs. But they can't match up in the same way against the Eagles, Bills, Chiefs when it comes to the passing game. And that's on both sides of the ball. So, you know, they're just not much of a passing threat offensively. Their wide receivers are, you know, it's Traylon Burks, it's Westbrook, whatever his name is. And, like, you know, it's just not a very threatening group. And Ryan Tannehill's fine as a quarterback. Thank you. No, I'm good. Thank you. Sorry about that again. Ryan Tannehill's fine as a quarterback, but he's certainly, you know, not elite. He's middle of the pack, in my opinion, among, you know, NFL starting quarterbacks. And then defensively, they've spent a lot of resources on their cornerback position. So they used the first-round pick on Caleb Farley, who's done for the season. They used the second-round pick on the kid this past draft, McCreary.
Yeah.
They used the third-round pick on Elijah Molden. He's their slot corner. And I'm missing somebody here. But anyway, it's a very young group of cornerbacks that they may be good eventually, but they're still kind of trying to find their way right now. And I think that the Eagles, Chiefs, and Bills can all take advantage of matchups against those cornerbacks. So yeah, I mean, they're a tough, grimy, physical team that you will usually outplay their opponents on the ground, but they just aren't threatening as a passing offense, and they are susceptible to the pass on defense.
Jimmy, this week, a lot of lip service was paid to special teams. Need to be better, got to be more committed to it. That handicapped our defense. It was used as an explanation, if not an excuse, as to why the defense gave up 33-point short fields and everything. Will we see any evidence of any change this week against Tennessee?
We saw them take away Britton Covey's kick return duties this past game. Boston Scott filled in that role. I think it'll be interesting to keep an eye on Saturday when Saturday's the day that they have to announce practice squad call-ups. So it'd be interesting to see if they call up a guy like Devin Allen, for example, either for kick or punt return duties, or just to use his speed on kick and punt coverage, either as a gunner or just on kick coverage. So yeah, I think that might be a hint in terms of what changes they can make. But as far as bringing in any outside players at this point in the season, we're already past the trade deadline, so you can forget about trading for anyone, obviously. But in terms of bringing in players off the street that can help your special teams, probably just not realistic at this point in the season. But yeah, I mean, you look at the special teams units, and they've had very consistently at least one or two, significantly bad plays in almost every game. And this past game, of course, they were trying not to allow the Packers return guy, Keyshawn Nixon, they're trying not to allow him to return kicks. Like, they were trying to put it through the end zone. And he was taking kicks out 6-7 yards deep out of the end zone, which you don't see that often. And the Packers clearly identified an Eagles weakness there, and that they aren't great at covering kicks. So, yeah, I mean, you look at these special teams units, they're not great covering kicks. They're completely unthreatening on their own kick and punt returns. And they've had some weird gaffes otherwise, like a blocked field goal. I forget who converted a fake punt against them. But, yeah, they've been lucky so far this year to not have had a special teams gaffe wreck a game, lose a game for them this year. And it feels a little bit like a ticking time bomb that could go off. So they better get that fixed before the playoffs start, because it really has been an issue all year.
It absolutely has. I mean, it's ticking time bomb, to say the least. I hate to have them lose a game over special teams like that. But, I mean, it looks like it's coaching. It seems like our special teams coordinator, Michael Clay, is being outclassed. Looking at the head coaches of each of these head coaches, younger head coaches, with the Titans and with the Eagles, Vrabel. He's starting to be, one of the, great coaches in the league. Who do you think has the best coaching staff at this point?
Yeah, I don't know too much about their staff aside from Vrabel, but obviously his success has been, very, very clear and obvious.
Hard-nosed football, yeah.
No doubt. And you asked Nick Sirianni what this Titans team is all about. I asked AJ Brown what this Titans team is all about after their win over the Packers on Sunday night. And they basically said, it's toughness, and it's, they're just a very grimy, tough, physical football team. And that starts with Vrabel, and it, trickles its way down to the players. And Nick Sirianni talked at length about how much respect he had for Vrabel when Vrabel was a player. He actually was on a coaching staff with the Chiefs. Sirianni was on a coaching staff with the Chiefs when Vrabel was still a player, and he was captain of that team. And he could tell right away what kind of leader he was just as a player, and that's carried over to him as a coach. I don't, they've gotten more out of their rosters than you would expect. These are not great Titans rosters. Again, they were the 1 seed in the AFC last year, and it packed AFC. So they've gotten a lot. He's gotten a lot out of those teams without having a great roster and a great quarterback.
All right, JK, do you have any concern that the Eagles will attempt to overemphasize, overfeed AJ Brown this week, because it's a game that understandably means a lot to him? Tennessee traded him, didn't want to pay him, basically said sorry, but he has done a nice job of answering you guys' questions this week on trying to make it sound like it's not something that's as big a deal to him. Nick Sirianni said the same thing, and then we saw the way he reacted after the Colt game. Any worries that the Eagles will try and take care of their guy, A.J. Brown, that Jalen Hurts will be the key guy making those decisions on where he's going to pull the trigger? Any worries that they'll overfeed A.J. Brown this week?
I think it's actually a good idea to try to overfeed him this week, and not because he's playing against his old team, but when you look at A.J. Brown in the season that he's had, he's gone through some really hot streaks, and then over the last 3-4 games, his numbers have tailed off a little bit, and for good reason. He had a hurt foot, and he had an illness that affected him in 1 or 2 of those games. So I think it would be a good idea to get him back on track, and having the Pro Bowl, all-pro kind of season that he was putting together at one point. And his foot seems to be healthy now. He's recovered from his illness. And again, getting back to the point that they actually have matchups that they can exploit in that Titans secondary. I think it actually is a good idea to get him the ball, but not for the reason because he's playing against his former team, but I just think it actually makes a lot of sense to go to him quite a bit in this game.
Well, then I mean, I kind of counterintuitive to what I was thinking about them running the ball with, Miles Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we can run the ball on him, because we did it against the Saints, and with that added dimension of the Hurts, I just think that we need to establish the run to even go over the pass, and I think that's the key matchup right now. Miles Sanders being able to keep that offense off the field and stay on our side of the field, and time of possession being in our favor as opposed to being the Titans' favor.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think they're going to seek to have balance in this game. And you mentioned the Saints. I think that's an awesome point. Like last year, the Saints had the #1 run defense in the NFL when they faced them. And Eagles ran it 50 times on them in that game. And I think they had 250 some odd yards, something like that. They were right around 5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. And they didn't care that the Saints came in here and they were the #1 run defense in the NFL. They ran it anyway, and they did it very successfully. And I think that they can do that against the Titans as well. So, yeah, I don't think you just completely abandon the run. But, I think that, balance of taking advantage of those matchups in the secondary, and also, not going into this game and just saying, okay, well, the Titans are good at stopping the run, and that's what they want to do. They want to stop the run, so we're just gonna play into that, what they want to do to us. So yeah, they're certainly going to run the ball, in my opinion.
Jimmy, I mentioned AJ and his kind of revenge match against Tennessee Titans. We got another one. Jim Schwartz, senior defensive assistant on the Titans staff. He doesn't have any connect with the Eagles' current coaching staff, didn't coach with any of them. And he's a couple of years removed from being here in Philadelphia. But he does know a couple of those key guys on the defensive side of the ball, still Fletcher and BG and the like. Advantage Titans for having Schwartz, or advantage Eagles because they can figure out what Schwartz is going to do. He's not the DC, just a senior defensive assistant, but if you see them play, there are some Schwartz-like characteristics in its defense. Is there an advantage to be had in this matchup?
I don't really think there is. I could see if it were I could see if Doug Peterson were still the coach and he was fully aware of what Doug Peterson liked to do offensively and could game plan against that. But just in terms of knowing players like Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, whoever you want to name. I don't think there are any secrets about what those guys bring to the table. What they sort of are as players, from Jim Schwartz to any other defensive player defensive coach across the league. I think if anything, the Eagles sort of know what the Titans want to do defensively. The Jim Schwartz's MO in Philadelphia was always first and foremost stop the run, and then once you stop the run, you can make the opposing offense one-dimensional, and you get after the passer. It was a very simple formula, and I think that's sort of what the Titans' identity, really has been before he even got there, but has only been enforced since he's gotten there. So I don't know if there's a big advantage either way, but certainly the defense will look familiar to Eagles fans from what he was in Philadelphia for 5 or 6 years or whatever it was.
Well, let me ask you this then. All right. You look at a team that lost Jordan Davis. They go in and get Joseph, and they get Sue.
Yeah.
And now Davis is back. Do you think he plays and they put that 50 front in? Can you imagine that, having Davis over the nose and Sue and Linville Joseph over the both guards? Is that a perfect world?
I think if they do play Joseph and Davis together, I think Davis gives you more versatility than Joseph. So I think Joseph is the guy that lines up over the nose because it's really all he can do.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
Davis maybe plays, sort of that 4-eye tech or whatever. And in there with Sue maybe. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they play those guys together. But I think certainly Davis will get his share of snaps at the nose, because you look at what they did against the Packers last Sunday night. They only played think 49 snaps total on defense, and Joseph played 30 of those. So that's a high percentage of snaps that he was playing in that game. The Packers really they wanted to run the ball in that game with Aaron Jones and with A.J. Dillon, but they sort of got away from it a little bit whenever the Eagles went to those, odd man fronts with Joseph in the middle. So they don't want him playing that high a percentage of snaps. So Davis will take some of those away. And then it'll be interesting to see how Davis's role is expanded. Because before he got hurt against the Steelers, he was almost solely just a nose tackle. And then in that Steelers game, they started to expand his role a little bit. Like he was playing in even man fronts, which he hadn't done all year, and then he got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see like how quickly they go right back to expanding his role, or if they try to ease him back in a little bit. I think they go right into expanding his role immediately, right off the bat, where they get him in games, they get him on plays with Joseph, and then also in scenarios where he's playing in 4-man fronts as well. So, I mean, just look at this defensive line now, particularly the defensive tackles. Oof. It's crazy how many big-name players they have, like Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, and, I guess the least, well-known player would be Milton Williams. But you have 6 guys that you can rotate those guys in and out. One more point to make on that, by the way, the depth that they have at defensive tackle. What Derrick Henry is great at is wearing teams down over the course of a game. Like he really has an effect on defenses, but primarily in the second half is when he's super effective. And I don't know that that's a big advantage against a team like the Eagles that has this kind of depth at defensive tackle. So, I think the Eagles' depth when they get Jordan Davis back is just one more player that they can add to the fold, and they can stay fresh throughout games.
So we're going to get you to predict and project on this one, too. They're not keeping 6 defensive tackles up on Sunday. It's not happening. I'll go out on a limb right now. So someone has to come out of the mix.
But no. All 6 of those guys will be up on Sunday.
You think so?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Are they going with 7? No, and 4 outside. So that's 10 defensive linemen? Or do you think where does the extra guy come off on what they usually mix? They're already down to 5 offensive linemen. If you're going to activate Jordan Davis and not remove one of your defensive linemen, who's coming off the active roster on Sunday?
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think, will go on IR on Saturday.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about on the active roster.
No, I get it.
The playing roster, not the 53. Okay. I'm talking about the 48 that dress on Sunday.
So their 5 inactives on game day are usually Ian Book, the quarterback, Trey Sermon, the 4th running back, Josh Jobe, a cornerback. Who am I missing here? Josh Sills, offensive lineman, and Sua Opeta, offensive lineman. You're not going to have one of those guys up in favor of one of those defensive tackles, in my opinion. There's just no need for any of those guys to play. The defense, I think, unless they call up a guy from the practice squad on Saturday at like safety or something like that. I think all 6 of those guys will be up on Sunday.
All they have to do is sit down Quinn. Quinn hasn't done anything. Sit Robert Quinn down.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah. That could very well be.
Which means Milton might have to slide out a little bit, but I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think he could do it if called upon. All right. The game itself, when they get down to it, you said Derrick Henry wears teams down. Might be more difficult to do against the Eagles because they've got such depth and versatility on their defensive line.
Yep.
What if the Eagles are playing from behind? This past week was great. It was 13-0 before you blinked. Now, to the Packers' credit, with a little help from the Eagles' inability to convert on 4th down, they got right back into it. Shoot, even went up by a point. But if the Eagles fall behind, they're going to throw the ball that much more. Jalen Hurts' running aspect of his game a little less than it was. How will the Eagles respond if Tennessee grabs an early lead and gets to play from in front?
Yeah, I think it's harder to play them defensively if they get a lead on you because they'll just keep hammering the run on you. You ideally you want to get a lead on them, so they have to throw it and try to play from behind. As far as the offense goes, I think they're just so good offensively that they can win in a number of different ways. They can run the ball or they can pass it. I think they can still maintain balance if they get behind and still be able to move the football effectively and score. So yeah, I think that this is a team that, isn't screwed basically if they get behind in games. But against this Titans team, it does become more problematic for them defensively.
I just think, man, we're good going into this game. This is an impact game, considering the fact that we have a team that's number 3 against the run, and we need to run the ball. And the dynamic play of Jalen Hurts will put us over the top. Do you see Jalen Hurts still going with the same style of that he had last week, this week, or do they go back to trying to protect him again and make him a drop back passer?
Yeah, so the Packers were interesting in the way they played him. They played a lot of man defense early on, and they didn't spy him at all. So when he just saw wide open pastures in front of him, he ran. Like, he had 2 rushes for 52 yards at one point. He had like 6 rushes for over 100 yards at one point. And then the Packers kind of changed what they were doing, and they played a little bit more zone defense. And then the Eagles picked them apart that way through the air. So, it's kind of pick your poison. I think if the Titans try to play a lot of man defense and they aren't spying them and there are wide open lanes for Jalen Hurts to take, he'll take them. And if they don't, then I think the Eagles can beat them in other ways. So I think it's really just all kind of in the hands of the way the Titans want to play them, and then the Eagles kind of just play off of that. So, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily going into this game, I don't think that they'll necessarily say, Jalen, we need you to not run as much or we need you to run more or anything like that. It's just kind of take what the defense has given you, and because the Eagles are so good at winning in so many different ways offensively.
Jimmy, I got a 2-part question for you. Last thing before we let you run, and both are important. Number one is you do a great job covering Eagles day in, day out, breaking down stuff, doing it for us here on Bird 365 when we need you. But one of my favorite things, above and beyond stick figures, which are great, is that you've got your finger on the pulse of the draft pick compensation for free agents lost. Yeah. And you've done none of it this year because you've got a 10-1 team to write about. So you've been kind of distracted from one of the things I love best that you do. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. You shouldn't be worried about who the Eagles are going to get in draft pick compensation because they got a Super Bowl to try and go win this year. But
no doubt.
How big could their draft pick compensation be? Because the Eagles got a whole hell of a lot of free agents, specifically on this defense right now, and Howie Roseman hasn't been able to get his usual contract extensions done. How huge is this offseason for the Eagles coming up? I'm gonna my second part of the question is gonna be I'm gonna make you pick the game coming up on Sunday, but I am looking forward a little bit because you're that good at covering it. How big an offseason, how tough an offseason might this be for the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of players that are scheduled to be free agents, like you said, and it'll be interesting to see how they're able to keep the band back together, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think the number one priority will be to bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he'll probably be pretty expensive. I think you also probably want to bring back Marcus Epps at the other safety spot to be determined what he'll want in free agency. And then at linebacker, both of those starters, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, those guys are both scheduled to be free agents. I think it's more likely they try to bring back Edwards than White because you still have Nakobe Dean kind of waiting in the wings. Maybe he steps up and takes on a starting role in 2023 and beyond to be determined. But yeah, they have basically guys that are going to be free agents all over the book. Isaac Seumalo is another one. How do you replace him if he goes? Do you just trust guys off the bench like Jack Driscoll or I guess not so bad at this point? Do you draft do you basically draft a right tackle for the future who can play right guard in the short term? So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting offseason to see who they're able to keep and who they kind of have to make tough decisions on to let go off to some other. Miles Sanders is another one, of course, that is going to be a free agent this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. So yeah, I mean, there's probably more scheduled free agents this year or 2023 than they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think they'll want to keep the band back together with all the obvious success that they've had so far here in 2022. So yeah, even when this season is over, there's still going to be plenty to talk about, no doubt.
Well, you just said that so you said all those. That means we're not signing the quarterback then. We're not signing Hurts.
No, Hurts is locked in. Hurts can't go anywhere.
Yeah, they have a year to figure that out.
Right.
If they can't agree to, a deal or whatever, Hurts will have to play on, the final year of his contract, and he'll get a bump he'll get like what's called a player performance escalator, which will bump his salary up to like $2 or $3 million or something like that. But that's chump change for an MVP candidate. So yeah, I think something will get done there ultimately. They can structure contracts in a way where the cap hit in 2023 will be super low, but then, in subsequent years, then it jacks up pretty high. So yeah, they'll have to. The Eagles did a bad job of managing their roster after they won the Super Bowl in 2017. I thought Howie Roseman had 3 pretty bad off seasons, and then he came back in full force and he brought the team back up to a Super Bowl kind of level. But it'll be interesting to see how he sort of changes the way he did things after that Super Bowl run, and sort of what lessons were learned in terms of making tough decisions on guys that you maybe don't want to overpay, and which positions to prioritize, and so on and so forth. But they sort of missed a window to be really dominant for a long time after that first Super Bowl run. It'll be interesting to see how what their plan is this time around.
All right, JK, great stuff there, but you got to tell us. Are we talking about an 11-1 team come Monday? When I read you in phillyvoice.com on Sunday night / Monday morning, are we talking about loss number 2, or the fact that the Eagles still have the best record in all of football?
All right, I got them. So they have the ball, 21-20, opportunity to try to close out the game, and they drive down, they kick a field goal, make it difficult for the Titans to come back and score touchdown the other way. Titans have like a minute to do so, can't do it. Eagles win 24-20.
24-20 birds, right on the number. As a matter of fact, it's 4.5. But if you're going to use that half point, all 3 of us, Johnny Mac and I, both said John picked the Titans. I picked the Eagles by a field goal. You got them by 4. So we're saying under the number, but at least you got them going to 11-1. Jimmy, good stuff. Always a pleasure, buddy. We'll get you back on in a couple of weeks. Thanks for jumping into the mix today.
Appreciate it, guys.
That's Jim Kempski from phillyvoice.com here with us on Birds 365. All right, Barrett, I'm not going to make your pick just yet. I know you're sticking around. You and Tone are going to do the last 15 minutes together. I got to jump over to CBS Sports Radio. I've got Eagles winning 23-20. Johnny Mac had Tennessee 24-23.
What?
Kempski, we're all around the same score. Kempski had Eagles 24-20. I'd love to know what you're going to pick, but I want you to hold on to your pick, and then I want you to give it to Tone. You and Tone are going to do the last segment together. Just give me a little preview, a little hint. It's going to be close.
I think they're going to win by a touchdown. Put it like
touchdown. All right, Barrett's got them winning and covering. None of the other 3 of us did, but keep it here. Barrett's going to bring you home. Tone's going to jump in, guide the ship for the final segment. John and I will be back on Monday to talk.
Appreciate you, Jody.
No, Barrett, I appreciate you. Thank you for filling in. Barrett's coming back with Tone. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted,
revered,
appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate, honest,
and fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
motivated, and always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Welcome back to the final stretch of Birds 365. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, and I'm here with the big fella, the man, the myth, the legend, B. Brooks. How you feeling?
What up, man? What you got going, man? I see you coming on the, front and center right now, man, making this happen. Let's go. We got about 15 minutes. Let's talk, man. Let's talk.
Hey, listen, we got a power 15 minutes, man. So look, B. Brooks, I've been thinking about this, and first and foremost, thank you so much for showing love as always. But I've been thinking about this, right? If it came down to it, if the Eagles said, hey, we need an extra old lineman, but we don't know who to call. We need somebody that's done it before. We need somebody that's done it on a high level, on the highest of levels. We need somebody with the experience, the pedigree, the moxie, the swagger, the juice. You know what? I know a guy, B. Brooks. If they gave you a call, how many reps do you think you would have in you? How many reps do you think you would have in the tank, the good brother B. Brooks?
I'm gonna tell you, I'll give you one drive. If the drive was like maybe
game-winning drive,
8 plays. I got you 8 plays. We get to that 9th play, 9.5. No way, man. Them real men out there now, man. Going against guys like Jordan Davis. Come on, man. Linville Joseph. I'm not trying to do that these days, bro. Although I did play against the real deal players, man. Like even these defensive end these days, they still don't hold a candle to what I played against. My first couple of years in the league, I had Chris Dolman. I played against Pat Swilling, Derek Thomas, the best defensive edge rusher I've ever played the game, and the Reverend, Mr. White.
Gritty guy.
I played against Lloyd Green. The list goes on and on. Bruce Smith, Leslie O'Neal. Top quality defensive ends Michael Strahan. The list goes on and on and on. I played against guys that have gold jackets. The Leon Letts of the world, the Charles Haleys of the world. That was like an everyday Sunday with me. These guys get maybe every once in a while, they'll get a guy that's going to have a gold jacket. Me, it took like my first 6 or 7 years of my career. I played against guys, at least 5 to 6 guys that would have gold jackets on later on in their lives. So the quality that I went against and I played against was well beyond the players that these guys are playing. Even Aaron Donald, you say Aaron Donald's great. I'll go John Randall or Leon Lett. I put him up against one of those two guys. That's the quality of players that I played against when I was playing, man. Bona fide Hall of Fame type of defensive ends and defensive tackles.
So, like you just laid out, you've been through plenty battles in the trenches. You're battle tested. You've been through plenty wars. So I got to ask you this. From a former old lineman's perspective, how should the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line handle what the Titans do well? And that's run the ball with Derrick Henry. From an old lineman's perspective, you're there. You're a tackle for the Tennessee Titans. And you're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. What do the Philadelphia Eagles need to do
to take advantage of you being on that offensive line for the Tennessee Titans?
I'll tell you what, penetration kills all run plays, man. They got to get up the field, penetrate. And when you penetrate, you get enough penetration, you make Derrick Henry start and stop his feet. You know, you let him get a full head of steam going, it's going to be hard to bring that big fella down. You must make him stop, redirect. And the only way you can do that if you set edges and stop penetration. I mean, get penetration up the field. And I believe they can do it. You know, Kemp was right. You know, you take and you put Linville Joseph over the nose, put Davis over you know, the 4-eye or 3 technique over the guard, and put Sue over the other guard. Maybe put Fletcher Cox outside at the end position, and maybe Javon Hargrave on the other end position. When you put a defense like that up there, that's a lot of beef up front. You may not be able to rush the passer. Well, you probably could, you know, with Fletcher Cox being outside and Hargraves being outside, and then, you know, you got Sue on the inside. But can you imagine having a 50 front with those 5 guys on the field? Fletcher Cox, Hargraves, Linville Joseph, Sue, and Davis. That's huge. You know, that's the opposite of a NASCAR front. I don't know what you would call that. You would call that a Bigfoot front, or you know, what do you call it? The big tire front? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know, the
Angus front. The Angus.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a front right there. You could definitely stop any run. You know, and that's probably one of, you know, the goal line situations. They'll probably have that lineup in there. But they have the athletes. They have the guys that could stop this running game. And I know that they're going to be able to do it. You know, they're going to stop Henry from getting this full head of steam going. Because once he gets that full head of steam going, you got those smaller guys. You got guys, you know, start making business decisions. Now, one thing I will say, Reed Blankenship, he's playing on borrowed time. So, you know, he's like, you know what? He's going to come up. What? I'm telling you right now, he's going to come up and crack Henry. Trust me, because he don't know any better. He don't know any better. He's too young or dumb to know any better.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. So he's trying to go and make a name for himself. And this is how you make a name for yourself. Reed Blankenship is going to lose sleep on Saturday night dreaming about being able to meet head-to-head King Henry in the middle of the hole. And he comes up and cracks him. Almost like Steve Atwater and Christian Okoye in the middle of the field, Clash of the Titans. Crack. That's what I see, man.
So do I smell a hot take? Are you saying Reed Blankenship is going to force a fumble on Derrick Henry? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying he's going to come up and hit him right in the mouth. Now, I don't know how the results are going to be, you know what I'm saying? Because you got physics. There's physics involved with this, you know what I'm saying? You know, you got this big dude coming downhill, and once something's in motion, it tends to want to stay in motion. But, hey, you got a guy that just don't care. He's on borrowed time. He knows he's out on the field, and he wants to make a huge impression. So my impression is Reed Blankenship comes downhill and has the hit of the century against King Henry.
Okay. Now let's flip to the other side of the ball, the side that you're very familiar with, the Eagles' offensive line. Now, the Tennessee Titans, they're ranked 3rd in the league in terms of defending the run. They're not giving them no more than 90 yards on the ground, which is amazing at this juncture of the season, right? So, from an O-lineman's perspective, what's the mentality that these guys should have going into this game? Not just the players, but also the coaches. Because again, even though they're stopping the run, I'm of the mindset of I don't care what you're good at. I'm going to dictate what I want to do, and then I'm going to make you stop me. You got to prove to me every single week that those numbers make sense. That's my mindset. Yep. I don't care what your record is, how many points you put up, how many guys you're able to stop in the run game. You got to show me every time we play that you're that guy. You know, I'm pretty sure you've seen the old meme that's been circulating back in the day. Hey, buddy, you're not that guy. You're not that guy. Exactly. You need to show me that you're that guy. So, what's the mentality of the offensive line?
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of this Eagles team. They have their bread and butter, and that's running the rock. And they're not going to deter anybody from allowing them not to run the rock. You know, we talk about a defense. The last 2 times the Eagles have played the Saints, they have been the #1 defense against the run. And Jalen Hurts is that X factor, man. They're able to run the ball against these teams, even though they're #1. You look at a team like Denver last year. Denver was like a top 5 defense against the run. They had over 200 yards rushing on them. The Saints were #1. They had over 240 yards on them. They run the ball when they want to run the ball. And it's basically that #1 offensive line going against whoever they got there.
but it's also the mentality that this team feels as though Jalen Hurts is the X factor. He's the de facto guy that he can go in there and make things happen that teams cannot stop. They can't do anything about it. You can't account for him in a number count when it comes to running the ball, because when he can run the ball, that means you have an extra blocker with the running back. And that's what makes it work, for this Eagles team. He is such a good athlete also that he can make guys miss. He's such a strong athlete, squatting 600 pounds, that he can even run through guys. Now, we know that, we don't want our starting quarterback out there taking hits or giving hits. We understand that. But this is the time where you start jockeying for position in the playoffs. And it's imperative that if this Eagles team wants to make it to the playoffs, make it to the Super Bowl, they must be that number one seed. The road must go through Philadelphia in the playoffs. If they can go through Philadelphia, it'll be smooth sailing, but they must go through Philadelphia. The only way they can do that is if they become the number one seed. Get that week off and then be the number one seed going forward.
And that's why I think this game is a must-win game for them. For obvious reasons that you laid out, but also for me, you prove that you can stop anyone on the ground. If there's the top echelon, the upper echelon of running backs in the NFL, Derrick Henry is right there.
Oh, he is it, yes.
So if you can prove that you can stop Derrick Henry, that's a huge confidence booster for your defense, your front seven, as a matter of fact. And then on top of that, you also prove that your strengths outweigh your weaknesses. We all know the Philadelphia Eagles have struggled with stopping the run this year. But if you can do it against the best of the best, then you feel like you can do it against anybody, like I said. And on top of that, Hurts to get that high-quality victory, that high-quality win on his resume, which for some reason people always love to lay out that he doesn't have, right? So, do you believe this is a must-win game? Do you believe that this game can really, turn the tide for the Philadelphia Eagles? Is this a corner-turning game?
It's a statement. It's a statement game, and it's gonna put every team that runs the rock on notice that the Eagles gonna face coming up pretty soon. We still got to play Dallas. They run the rock.
Chicago.
We got to play Chicago. We got to play the Giants. We still have teams that run the ball efficiently, and the knock has been on this team that they cannot stop the run. Best believe Gannon's gonna have those guys pissed off and ready to rock, because everybody's saying that they don't match up well against this Titans team. The Titans are going to beat them because they can't stop the run.
Hey, B-Bruce, let me ask you a question real quick. You brought up Gannon, right? And the Eagles have a lot of beef, like we always mention. On that defensive line: Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Adama Sue, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, so on and so forth. They got a lot of beef, a lot of size, a lot of money on that defensive front. But Jonathan Gannon's mentality, his philosophy, the way he approaches the game, it kind of takes away from what those guys are capable of, right? And even though we know from a talent perspective, those guys are top-notch, those guys are big bodies, they can move anybody around. Can Jonathan Gannon be the Achilles heel of this defensive line because of his commitment to his philosophy and his scheme?
Well, at this point, his philosophy is going to be that, all right, you need to get the job done. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be a problem here. And he knows and understands what he has to do now. It can't, it's not a philosophy-based defense when you're going up against teams that you know what their philosophy is. You got to do what's going to get it done to win the game. And I think that's what Gannon will do. He knows that he has to stop the run, so he knows he's going to have to go out there and maybe run some run blitzes. See, I think if we had Gannon, if Gannon was a first-year coach this year, and we don't know anything about what happened last year, and we look at what he's done this year, we'd be mentioning him with the upper echelon defensive coaches. The Emmett Thomases that have been here, the Jimmy Johnsons that have been here, those upper echelon defenses that we see, the Buddy Ryan defenses. Because the numbers and statistics point towards this defense being very, very good. But we know what happened last year, and our mentality is, all right, we're going to always go back to that bend but don't break. Have everything happen in front of it, then go down and corral it and stop it. He has the athletes, yes, to go out there and play more aggressively, but he just wants to win the game. So he's going to do whatever to win the game. Like I said, his defensive numbers are, we would be mentioning him as having a great year, a great season, but we always revert back to what he did last year and making a comparison of what he's doing this year. I think Gannon is done, well this year at going out there and optimizing the talent that he has on the field. Yes, he could play a little tighter man-to-man because he has the cornerbacks to do it. But right now, I mean, we really are downplaying how much of a factor Avonte Maddox not being in the slot has done to this defense. He had guys, that Josiah Scott in there. Those aren't guys that he wants to play that type of defense. But when they had him there, they played a more aggressive style of defense when they had Avonte Maddox there. You can't do that now when you have guys that just don't know. Plus, he took a guy, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, put him in a position that he hadn't played before. So I think Gannon has done quite a well-done job of getting things done and getting this team going in the right direction as far as defensively. This will be a big call on his record. This will be a huge game for me in looking at Gannon to see how can he go out there and engineer a defense to stop the number one rushing running back in the league.
Hey, to your point, right? My mom always told me whenever she gave me a list of things to do, she said, look, I don't care how you get it done. Just get it done.
Yes,
Just get it done, okay?
I don't care what you call me as long as you call me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So we got a minute left in the show. I got to get your prediction. Philadelphia Eagles facing off with the Tennessee Titans, week 13. Your Eagles are 10-1. Tennessee Titans are 7-4. Both these teams lead their division. Both these teams are trying to finish the season off strong. How do you think this game turns out for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I'm going 27-20. Eagles win. And, it's going to be a lot of field goals. A lot of field goals on the Titans side of the ball. They're going to bend. They're not going to break. And, going to be a couple, field goals. But the Eagles win by a touchdown, 27-20.
Yeah, I'm going to say 24-17 Eagles. Like you said, I think it's going to be a gritty game at first, but I think the Eagles pull away in that second half. So, yeah, man, this is going to be really exciting. B. Brooks, as always, my man, I appreciate you always for being gracious, for always taking the time out to not just chat with me, but also, taking that time out for Birds 365, my man. I know you got a full slate today with the Sports Takes guys, Rob Ellis, Derek Gunn. I know those guys will keep you on your toes. So, B. Brooks, as always, we appreciate you, my man.
Appreciate it, TD.
Definitely. Hey, listen, you guys, y'all heard it here first. B. Brooks said it. Touchdown win for the Philadelphia Eagles. So make sure you guys continue to smash that like button. Make sure you guys continue to stay engaged on JAKIB Sports. And also make sure you guys check out Sports Take Guys and the National Football Show. Man, it's a big weekend, you guys. Can the Philadelphia pull it off? We'll find out. You guys were locked in on Birds 365. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, and I was here with the former NFL guy, the former offensive lineman, the big guy, the big fella, Bear Brooks. Take care, you guys. One love, stay humble, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay hungry.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.